Hi, everybody. Welcome to our last class, if you can believe it already. So, class 16. Um, I want to leave some time at the end to do an Ask Me Anything. I just realized we hadn't done that yet. So, I'm going to kind of power through the content and not skip things, but we're going to be efficient with our time. All right, so we're going to skip the preliminaries, jump right into the agenda for tonight. We want to talk about emerging trends. What does quantum computing do for cybersecurity, machine learning? Uh, how is cybersecurity going to look? It's going to be different. We can talk about that a little bit more. Career paths, practical guidance. This should hopefully be helpful for people. I think sometimes the answer isn't how do I get into cybersecurity? It's you get into something that's adjacent and work your way in from there. All right. So we've talked about a lot of stuff during this course. Uh, we've looked at how AI is impacting uh, quote unquote standard processes. And now it's kind of like, what's next, right? Who can tell? I don't have a crystal ball, but just based on trends and stuff, we'll talk about where we're at. I mean, from where we're at today compared to a year ago, a year ago, Google had just come out with Magica, which did keyword searches as far as, AI in cybersecurity. And we're a whole universe away from that today. LLMs are a lot better. Look at all the code and stuff that we've been able to write. So, what's the future going to look like? Have we maybe hit a plateau? Some people are forecasting, that LLMs are going to eat themselves because they're training on their own responses, which is kind of like training on your data and not having a validation set. So, you know, these things can happen. And then I guess the question would be is think about how you thought about cybersecurity a year ago and AI, and what do we think about it today? Okay, so let's talk about emerging trends and research. Explainable AI, I have said quite a bit about this, right? I think if you take a step back, when you're working with somebody and you're trying to implement AI and machine learning techniques, what do you tell them you're going to do? So if I was your CISO or a CIO and you came to me with your capstone project, could you explain to me what it's doing and why I should care? It's not just a show up and throw up kind of thing. You need to be able to navigate through it because oftentimes when you're discussing this with people, they may not even know the basics. Traditionally, ML's been a black box. Uh, we need to understand what the decisions are because as we've seen in this course, it makes a big difference. Um, so the next thing is federated learning for threat intel, right? How do we train models? I'm going to be starting a job here in the next couple of weeks for Microsoft as a SOC architect, and this is a question that we're trying to solve is when an analyst gets a detection or a case, what info should come with it? Should they have to go and look at logs or should it be collated and correlated? It should have threat intel. It could be this, could be that. So there's all kinds of things that go into this. And the biggest thing is that if you're training models, you want to be able to do it without sharing any of the raw data because of privacy concerns and things like that. And taking this approach will let you share stuff out, right? So you're not, if you have scaled data, maybe you're not exposing the actual core data. Um, there's things like, smart IoT, right? IoT security frameworks. OT is a big um, topic right now because of questions about nation state actors. Um, Salt Typhoon as an example, where they subverted telcos and did who knows what. There's opinion in certain circles that are National Grid and IoT is Swiss cheese, and people probably have a way to take control of it. So if there's somebody's finger on the light switch and it's not ours. Um, finance, uh, banks need to collaborate to make sure that they can prosecute fraud and scams without sharing customer data. Uh, Healthcare, right? Can you share information from healthcare devices without uh, exposing patient privacy? So that's a lot of questions, right? And I think this kind of sort of goes to the heart of LLMs. When the question is, what are LLMs trained on? It's trained on everything on the internet, including whatever you leave exposed. So there's more work to be done here, I'm sure. Then things like reinforcement learning, right? We want to train across the entire population to come up with strategies for defense. And AI for supply chain security. This is a big one. We're doing some of this at Amazon and Project Kuiper because we don't want an APT to get a free ride into space on our satellite, for instance. GitHub has security scanning, looking for credentials. Uh, Open source is the next frontier. I think you're going to have a lot more emphasis on making sure open source is linted clean by using AI. And where's blockchain fit into all this? How do you do provenance? Maybe it's not MD5, maybe it's blockchain. So there's lots to think about here, right? So talk real quick about a couple ways that we can explain AI better. There's two things called SHAP and LIME. And basically, there's two different methods. SHAP's an explainable AI method, and that determines how much each feature contributes to a prediction, right? So if you're doing uh, PCA or something like that, and when you do like your correlation matrix, that's an example of how you might better explain this. And this is based on economic theory. I'm not going to dive into that too deep here, but this is one way that you could say, okay, this is how my detection works. These are the things I'm looking for. Here are the ranges, and this is why I think this helps me find malware. So the advantage is it's mathematically rigorous, but the disadvantage is computationally expensive. But this is pretty good. Then we've got LIME, which is local interpretable model agnostic explanations. And that explains predictions by learning a simple model around the specific instance you want to explain. So that's a linear model that approximates your complex model's behavior in the neighborhood around one specific prediction. And it's another good way. You know, I would say SHAP is probably where I've had more experience, but Lime is good as well. It's fast and it's a linear model, but if you have adversarial AI with perturbations, right, that can make that model kind of fall down. So again, one of those things where you might want to consider using an ensemble method, looking at both. But just wanted to kind of throw that out there. Here's a comparison. You can look at this in the slides, but you know, basically tells you kind of the pros and cons of each. Okay. So Gen AI and security, this is sort of what we've been sticking our toe in the water around. Um, and this is why AI is not going to take our job, because AI is not intelligent. It doesn't guide itself. It can give you a bunch of crap as far as answers, and you have to sort through that and make sure you're getting the right information. And it's a teaming strategy, right? Human using AI to help them prosecute a case. And you can both do this offensively and defensively. Again, if you can write 1,000 lines of Python to do malware analysis and generate a dashboard, you can probably use that for just about anything you can imagine. Uh, so as far as, the the proliferation of it, uh, I think the 1,000% increase in AI-powered phishing in 2 years between 22 and 24, right? Vishing is a new thing, started at 2023, 2024. That's up 500% with voice phishing. And somebody's getting a call from their grandchild saying they got arrested in Mexico and send me $10,000. And of course they're going to do that. And identity is a big thing. My saying, nothing happens if somebody doesn't have an identity. Uh, Almost every organization struggles to verify identity because of AI threats. So, uh, you've got deepfake scams, Fraud GPT, which is a dark web AI platform. I, I have, I can neither confirm nor deny that I've ever looked at that, but there's some interesting stuff on the dark web, that being one of them. Uh, and then, you can download DeepSeek and run your own uh, LLM that doesn't have any guardrails. So you can take a fully trained model like DeepSeek and get it to do pretty much whatever you want to. So you don't get a prompt that says, "Oh no, you can't do that." You can do anything you want to with it. So you know, take that with a grain, whatever you will, but just be aware that there's people out there with their own DeepSeek instances that are hacking. So it's a collaboration. AI is your co-pilot. It's augmenting analysts, it's not replacing them. So if you have the domain knowledge and you can use LLM, you are going to be much more effective at what you're doing, hunting and doing that kind of stuff. Got things like Microsoft Security Copilot. Google Chronicle has AI assisted threat hunting. Not on it's probably good for a client, but Google doesn't use that themselves because it doesn't scale, but that's a different issue. And then you've got like Watson for cybersecurity as examples. So there are uh, examples out there where you can use LLMs for security. And the AI handles the scale and speed as we've seen. Humans, you have to be creative and provide ethical judgment. Uh, as somebody said, how do you get the results that you get? And it's really, being able to bend the LLM to your will. And then if you're not getting what you want, be able to start over and see it through till the end. And the AI does get better the more you use it. I think that the feedback you give it. So think about, how would you upskill with what you've learned here and your domain expertise? How do you upskill yourself so you can stand out from the crowd and say, I'm a cybersecurity person, I use LLMs, and this is how they help me, and this is how I can help you by doing it. Quantum computing, this is interesting. It's been around for probably 10 years now in the news. Uh, I think it's hard to wrap your mind around it. this is like Schrodinger's cat is, it's either dead or alive in the box until you open the box, you don't know. But I guess the quantum angle would be is the cat's in the box, you don't know if it's alive or dead. And then when you open the box, the cat disintegrates. So, you know,
Schrodinger.
yep,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So quantum is like Sch Schrodinger, except in entanglement. All
So
right.
fundamentally, it's like entanglement. The same particle can be in the same place in two different areas at the same time. And because of that, there can be two different conditions of reality at the same time.
Yep. And when you read it, it is gone.
Exactly.
So I'm not quite sure how you build a processor that does quantum computing, but there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me working on it. So currently it's limited. A lot of it is still theory. Um, for you've heard people talk about quantum proof crypto. I think we're a couple years away from that, probably 20 years at least. But you want to be prepared for that kind of stuff. And the impacts are that theoretically that because of the capabilities of quantum computing that it can break existing encryption. There's a few algorithms that say that they can break RSA, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, and I guess all I would say is there's a countdown. Years Y2Q, years to quantum. How many years is it? Who knows? Uh, so NIST has got post-quantum cryptography standards that they just published. And I won't go through those in detail, but if you're interested, go take a look. And it's going to be an issue because 93% of organizations don't have a post-quantum cryptography transition plan. So might be something to look into. Uh,
AES is going to explode.
it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, that it's
Hey Steve, uh,
yes,
speaking of synthetic malware data sets, for the capstone, is that what you wanted us to do? Because I asked Claude to download or to generate for me a synthetic
no,
um, malware data set. Is that what you wanted, or you wanted us to continue using the old data set that we had before?
the goal
Sample.
of Capstone is to use the same data set and then show all the phases of the machine learning life cycle and to do supervised and unsupervised learning
Mhm.
with the with the algorithms that we've been training on, and then to present that as an executive dashboard so you
So
can
continue using the same sample malware data set that you provided originally.
yes.
Okay, gotcha. Wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if you wanted us to generate a new synthetic malware data set or if you wanted us to continue the old one.
Nope,
That's
keep all right. That way
okay.
it's consistent all the way through. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So there's a lot of research going on here. We'll see what happens. I'm not counting my qubits before they're hatched, though. Okay, so what's the role of AI in the future of cybersecurity? There's really 5 areas, and what we want to do is we want to move from being reactive to being proactive. Um, the current state is we're in the boxing ring with a bag over our head, and then somebody punches us, and we try and respond to it. What we want to do in the future is be predictive and preventive with security. So we understand what the shape is. We understand where the anomalies are. We can focus our time on investigating anomalies instead of just a torrent of random detections and things like that. So it's going to shift. Hopefully, I think people are getting the cart before the horse, right? Because they're saying, oh, we don't need as many people in cybersecurity. I don't think that's going to be true. I think it's going to be more effective, and we're going to have the same number of people or more. So, AI enables, predictive analytics and baselines and forecasting. Theoretically, it can preemptively do vulnerability patching, right? So these are all some things that hold us up for the future, right? Microsoft has their threat prediction models. Google Project Zero, both very cool. Lucky to have been able to kind of take a peek under the covers of both of those. And then, autonomous patch management systems, right? If something's vulnerable, we're going to patch it, and we're not going to just, open a ticket. And a lot of this, I think, container security makes this better. There's a bunch of reasons why we don't want to be patching servers in. So we can automate and have autonomous security. Uh, Today we have rule-based automation. The rules are built by somebody who's probably not us, and they don't know about our network, or we're just guessing. What we're heading towards is AI assisted decision making, right? Um, if you work in a SOC, or you are a tier 1, tier 2 operator, what would a confusion or matrix look like for the detections you have coming in, right? You could take the aggregate number and break it out into the individual detections and see what the true positives, false positives are, and those sorts of information, right? That'd be a good place to start, because do our detections work even, right? How can we tune them and make them better so we can increase the true positive rate? And some of the stuff we've talked about in this class. Self-healing systems. I've seen examples of this, right? Where if you have an incident, you got containment. If you detect certain types of traffic, you can put somebody on a filtered network segment, and take action. A lot of times, if it's host as part of a service, you can just recycle it, tear it down, build a new one. Terraform does a good job of that. So you can, but the future is, right, we're not going to have standard policies. They're going to adjust themselves. And, as threats evolve, we have a response that executes without necessarily human intervention, right? At some point, a human's going to have to get involved. And, our security configurations, firewalls are going to self-optimize and stuff like that. I mean, hey, if we can do quantum computing, I think we can do self-optimizing firewalls. It'd be a lot better if it was optimized for the traffic and to see how effective the filters are and things like that. Today, you're looking at a sea of data trying to figure it out for yourself. Again, we still need to be the human in the loop. This all doesn't happen for free. Artificial intelligence is not intelligent, right? It just helps us do things faster at scale, but somebody still needs to tell it what to do. I've talked about false positives. You got to worry about regulatory compliance, privacy, those kinds of things. And then you have the ethical considerations depending on which direction you have. And then, threat landscape. We've got an arms race, AI-powered social engineering, machine learning-based attacks, zero-day discovery. This is happening already, and large-scale coordinated AI attacks. I just saw where the largest DDoS got dwarfed by the largest DDoS that got repelled. And this is all, AI-based as opposed to botnets. You've got AI-controlled attacks. So again, AI is going to augment you. It's not going to replace you. You need to be literate in AI and ML, right? And you got to have security knowledge. I think that's, I think it was Cloudflare, Darash. But, part of being that next generation security person is being conversant in AI and ML, right? Hopefully this course gave you a primer on that, and you can expand your skills and your knowledge. Everybody wonders, what the heck are we going to do with AI? What does it mean? They probably are not really cognizant that the underlying aspect of it is based on machine learning. And we have tons of data in security. It's just we don't use it very effectively. And conversely, help our AI specialists know more about security, or maybe have a AI security specialist. You got to be able to collaborate, right? If you can prompt and get results, you're going to be able to do a lot more work and make sure you're making ethical uh, decisions. So uh, we're coming from being a security analyst now, or AI wranglers or AI whisperers, right? I think we're better as wranglers. Um, so you're taking your time away from filling out false positive reports, and you can work more on strategy and oversight. Uh, think about business, right? You have to be a business person. I think that's one of my biggest advantages is I understand the technology, I understand the business, I can get down into the code, I can run a P&L. And you need to be able to collaborate, right? Be in touch with your DevOps people, be in touch with your end user customers, understand what they need and how you can help them in use AI. And last but not least, ethical and regulatory frameworks. This is growing all the time. I won't go through all of them, but EU AI has implication there. EU AI Act, and you've got GPDR and AI powered monitoring that are all things that we're going to have to deal with. Okay, so this this is sort of the dawn of a new era. And like everything else, I think that cybersecurity is going to change, and a lot of it is going to be more centric to being able to use LLMs and understand machine learning. Right? The this We're in a weird industry because there's millions of unfilled positions, but you can't get a job doing one of them. Does that mean that they're fake? Right? No, not necessarily. But I think one thing that often works against people is that when they look for an analyst role, they look for somebody with maybe 8 years experience. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't have to be 8 years experience directly in cybersecurity, right? You can get something that's cybersecurity adjacent and work your way into it. But having that experience is really super important, right? So, vulnerability management, that's not cybersecurity, but it's adjacent. Firewall management, network security, doing those kinds of things that are more operational in nature will help you get the experience that's going to, make people take a look at your resume.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
Just, personal experience. So I had, 20 years experience working for MSPs and prior to being full-time in security, and a lot of that experience and knowledge transferred, over. And so, speaking to exactly what you're explaining there. So it is true.
Yep. I got started as a network engineer. I used to do, build servers, and I sort of fell into information security. But when I realized that that base knowledge is super important, right? I don't diagram packets much anymore, but I could. And I can tell you how a router works and all those other things. And those are all equivalent skills. So like David was saying, right? If you can't get a job in cybersecurity, get a job in something cybersecurity adjacent, right? There's plenty of other opportunities. So don't hang your hat on that. And I do think this is based on decades of experience, is that people that have that core technical skill, whether it's networking or development or scripting or data analysis, are way more successful because they can take that skill and they can adapt it to something that is, quote unquote, in cybersecurity. So, go ahead.
I am noticing a lot on the job market, just looking through, the searching through the job search engines. And a lot of the roles, these jobs, there are AI related as well, LLM, and AI related. They it keeps requiring you to have like a PhD or a master's degree in a technical field. Sometimes it would say that it's other. I have a master's degree, right? But it's not in the technical field of computer engineering. It's not in statistics or mathematics. And then they will require like 8 years of experience and PhD. How is that even going to? How does that work for people who are trying to pivot? People who don't have PhDs, people who are non-technical, or people who don't have degrees in mathematics, statistics, engineering, computer science degree. Like I have a non-technical degree, and even though I have a background in security as well, but how does that work? Because we're all transitioning into AI, but they're asking you to have extensive amount of background experience.
That's what I was trying to relate is that you can have the experience in an adjacent industry and you might not get that job, but if you get into something that industry is adjacent, those skills will transcend. I have a business degree, right? So I don't have a fancy degree. And
Have a
it,
public health master's degree. And how do I get into AI with non-technical background?
well, well, public health, you had statistics, right?
Yeah, one course, just one course biostatistics. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I did P&Ls and ledgers and stuff like that when I did my business degree, but it was always I think that that's where you have to take it on yourself to get the that technical depth, the skills. And but if you have experience in an adjacent industry, I think it helps bridge that gap because a lot of that stuff is nice to have, but you can finagle your way around it. But again, I think that
Yeah,
if
that's
you're
what I'm
if
hoping to do, because I have an adjacent experience in cybersecurity. So I'm hoping I can transition into some of the LLM data science roles or hybrid roles, hopefully,
yeah,
prompt
well,
engineering roles.
and I would say this too is if you are uh transitioning over, right? Sometimes you have to take a job that gives you experience. Maybe the experience is better, and maybe it's not as high and lofty of a position as you would like, right? So think about that too, right? Is how do you get your foot in the door in an adjacent industry and build that experience? So I've done that too, where you go from one type of role to another type of role. I used to be in management, like C-level executive management kind of thing, and I got tired of doing it. So I decided I wanted to go back and be technical, and I had to, take a step back. It took 4 or 5 years to get back into that, technical realm, and it's worked pretty well ever since. So
And
it's
also, Tutu, don't be afraid for absolutely shameless self-promotion, right? Like,
yeah.
Yeah, thank
That
you.
back yourself, right? Back yourself on LinkedIn, show what you're learning, you know what I mean? And that will, that can also 100% drive
I mean, I ran across one intern position for, um, AI LLM, but I'm trying to see if there are possibilities to pivot through internally or something adjacent. Hopefully, I don't know if they're offering internships for people right now for to get into AI. That could help as well. But yeah,
well,
Well, also, Tutu, like with your current position, you can simply just like put together a package and show them, right, what you're capable of, and then let them consume that and respond accordingly, right? Like,
if you
So that
start,
can also be a springboard. Sorry, Steve. I'm so sorry, but
no, but I think that the point is right that if you start using some of the skills that and techniques that we've talked about in your job, that's going to get people's attention. Okay. The second thing is if you're looking to find a new job or get into a new field, you got to ask yourself, how do I, get that exposure, or get the attention? There's lots of ways you can do it. There's professional associations, there's networking, there's volunteering. Volunteering is always good, right? Because if you're volunteering for a cause, the people that patronize those causes often are connected. And if you're able to kind of wow them with some of the stuff that you're doing, that can help as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be cybersecurity related, but so those are just some things where you might stick your toe in the water, but it's all about networking, networking. I can't remember the last time I filled out an application and got a job. That's all been through networking, right?
You know,
People,
those,
so
sorry, Steve, those professional organizations like I have my CISSP and CC, whatever. There's another one for ISC squared or ISC 2 they call themselves now. And then there's ISACA. There's all these different communities out there that it's true. Like I haven't filled out an application for a long time, and I get people haunting me all the time. But and also I just wanted to say too with the business experience you have as a background, that is a huge bonus. That not many people have that business acumen, and it is very important, especially with cybersecurity.
yeah, great points. So that I agree, because it really is. I mean, I think that I call it the left brain, right brain integration, right? So you're able to understand what the business reason is for something that has a security application, right? So you're not it's like security shows up in your Spanish Inquisition and nobody wants to see a Spanish Inquisition, right? You're working with the business instead of just showing up and throwing down and saying, oh, you need to do something, right? That you did plan for and aren't able to execute. Anyways.
starting in like a GRC and like risk assessment, learning how to talk to every other team was a huge benefit. Like understanding that I needed to tell them that this isn't an in like you pointed out, like right, Steve, like this isn't an inquisition. There are no wrong answers, and we're here to correct things. So learning how to communicate with like other teams is very important, especially if you want to go like the governance risk compliance route.
Yep. And I think if you the way it goes a lot of times, security is an all or nothing uh, situation, and it gets really contentious, and you're like working against your stakeholders, and you can switch that around and say that I'm giving you a picture of the landscape and areas where we can improve, and then we're going to work together to make progress, right? So I've seen it done both ways. I don't think the dictatorial approach works very well, and it causes a lot of stress. But if you work with the teams, like Andrew was saying, right, that you're gonna end up being a lot further ahead.
The two greatest statements I ever learned was A number one, I'm here to help, and then B number two, nobody did anything wrong. If we come out with some sort of finding, it's okay, we'll fix it.
Yeah.
Right? So you can keep that team mentality.
Yep. And you don't want to be the kind of security organization that does a root cause analysis in your naming and blaming in that, right? That's not right. That's what I think I said this a couple classes ago, is if we did a crappy job of designing controls that let somebody do something that was improper, then the blame's on us. It's not on the user, right? All right. So we talked a little bit about this, the skills you need to have, there's a good segue into this. But I think the big thing is creativity and adaptability, right? Just being able to kind of roll with it. and get results. Don't get too stuck in your own methods or your own head. One thing that I always look for when I interview people is I'm trying to figure out if they have a map that they use to solve problems. How do you quantify a problem? How do you figure out how you're going to attack it? How are you going to get results? What's your thought process for doing that? And it's night and day. I can spot people. I mean, I can tell in 10 minutes if somebody has a map or not. And if you don't have a map, things are going to be a lot tougher for you. So think about that. How do I pick apart a problem? What's my process for solving it? Can I articulate that to somebody? Explain the process you use for making decisions, or how would you deal with the scenario? And that's the kind of stuff you're going to get asked. All right. So again, things are evolving. There's a lot of things changing. I'm sure if we're talking about this again in a year, we're going to be talking about different things, right? There's questions like, is AI going to replace us? No. It's going to change how we work, though. We're going to be able to do more. And, you know, if we use it to our advantage, we can get some pretty crazy results, right? We're not going to have the tier one SOC analyst pouring through pages of alerts and swivel chair, opening tickets and ServiceNow or what have you. We're going to automate that away, and we're hopefully going to be able to spend our time doing strategic stuff, right? I think this is a question that's probably on everybody's mind, right? Should you specialize in AI or cybersecurity, right? I think you need to understand both. And I think that you need to have a bunch of different skills. You have to have business acumen. You have to have technical depth, right? If I could tell people if there is one mandatory technical skill that everybody should have, is you should be able to self-serve data, right? Learn how to do a little bit of SQL or figure out how to use LLMs to get data for you, right? But you should be able to get your own data, right? So if you need access, find the system, get permissions, download the data and interpret it. That's a must-have skill, right? And start with your strengths and build around it, right? Everybody has a strength, and if you can add technical skill in around it, or if you're technically strong, add business and soft skills around it, that's going to be to your benefit, right? That's intersection is where the highest value opportunities exist, right? And I'm sure there's other people in class that can say this too. I know that's worked for me. You have to be able to cover a lot of ground, maybe not to the depth of specialists, but you have to be able to talk to them and work with them. And it's better to go with somebody with an idea that you've at least started working it through than to just show up with a blank sheet of paper. What's the biggest threat from AI and cybersecurity? I think today it's social engineering, deepfake, spam. Long term, I think you're going to see AI be used to amplify attacks, and a lot of attacks are based on reconnaissance, and reconnaissance takes time, takes people to look at logs and results and stuff like that. That's all prime candidates for AI automation, right? So we're going to be playing spy versus spy against those kinds of things, but it can help us in defense too. And I think that we need to figure out how to best do that, right? Again, figure out how effective we are. Let's spend times on things that are effective against attacks and quit wasting time on stuff that's not. And we can do that with techniques that we've talked about in this class, right? How do you stay current, right? You have to just be in it. I don't think that there is a single thing I have taught in this class that I learned in a class. It's all been through self-learning and presentations and going to conferences and experiments and that kind of stuff, and reading. So you have to, you have to do it yourself. And so there's a a lot to consider. But again, I think it's like security has continually evolved, and I don't think that there is a single course or college major or anything else that is going to get you ready for this industry. And if you want to be successful, if you want to rise to the top, if you want to, get that FANG job or whatever, right? You have to have both technical depth and business acumen, and also be able to explain how you get results and prove it, right? Right. So, a few final thoughts. Uh, we want to make sure that you're just rolling with the change, because everything that you learn in this course is probably going to be different in a year, right? Maybe except for the machine learning stuff. Like we said, it's lifelong learning. Uh, you don't get to a point and say I've arrived. What I'm doing now, I'm getting ready to do something I've never done before, and I'm coming off of the past almost 10 years doing stuff that I've never done before. So it's not like you get someplace and you say, okay, I'm at the top of the heap, I'm an expert. You're continuously evolving, and the opportunities are where there is no other expertise or experience, right? You have to take what you've learned and apply it in a new way. And that's the innovation piece. And that's how you're really going to be able to get ahead, is by innovating. Um, be ethically responsible. Don't do evil, right? You can easily do evil these days. Um, you can get around guardrail prompts and that kind of stuff. With LLMs, it's pretty simple to do, right? So, be cognizant of that. Uh, you know, we're the future, right? Maybe not me. I'm kind of at my future, but y'all are, right? So, this is, what do you want to be doing in 20 years, right? Think about that. 20 years comes pretty quick. 10 years is going to go by in a flash. What do you want to be doing, right? Work towards that. And again, it's continuous learning, uh, research, go to conferences, go to B-sides, go to vendor presentations, go to professional organizations, ISACA, IC. There's cybersecurity interest groups and things like that. I know here where I live in Seattle, there on the east side, there's a monthly lunch for cybersecurity people, and you can go to those kinds of things, volunteer, right? Volunteer at B-sides, volunteer at a security conference. There's researchers and things like that that um, that need volunteers. So, you may not know everything, but you can always help out somehow. And, my favorite thing is looking at open source AI security projects. Kaggle's a good place to find those. If you don't like trolling through GitHub, use your LLM to help find things, right? I think that would be super useful. And, kind of go on from there. See, we already did the capstone assignment that's posted on Classroom. Basically, it's pretty up what you've done already, and think about how you would show somebody who's not in this class what the result of your malware analysis is, right? So, pretend I'm the CISO and you're doing a presentation for me, and present those kinds of results. All right. All right, so I wanted to save some time here at the end, and just I usually do a class where we do this, and I realized we hadn't done it, but I just want to kind of throw it out there and, say, feel free to ask me anything, and I'll let you know what I think. If you don't have anything to ask me, then we can pack it in for the evening. I'm totally cool doing that too.
I had one question. Will you be available on Discord until next week, or?
Yep. I will be monitoring Discord up till the 11th.
Okay.
And like I said, I'll be checking my email daily and stuff like that too. So
So
you got
Steve, I've got a question. So I'm just about done with assignment 4, so I'm a little bit behind. Would it make sense to just focus on the capstone, or do I need to complete all of them in order to get, the credit needed?
the capstone covers the ground of all the other assignments, and that's a great point. Thank you for asking that question. I think that if you turn the capstone in and it covers all the phases of the machine learning life cycle, that covers all the rest of the homework. I
Okay.
would so if you're behind and you just want to focus on the capstone, and this goes for everybody, and I'll post this in Discord as well. I'm totally cool with that. If you turn in a working capstone, I think that covers the ground for the rest of the assignments.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you, Stephen.
yeah, I appreciate that. That's been the struggle with this for me. I don't have like a data science, data analytics background or anything like that, and it's pretty technical. So I'm very slowly going through this stuff, but I'm learning a ton. So I do appreciate the format in the class.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm glad you are. And like I said, you know, I'm not about methods, it's about results. And if you deliver a result, the way I tried to put it together was so you wouldn't have to do a big project at the end. You could just kind of chain all the pieces together. But if you chain all the pieces together and you turn in the capstone, then I figure you'll cover the ground.
So, Steve, Alex here. So, I actually have my first presentation to management tomorrow
Oh,
on a
nice.
project. Yeah, on a project that I was working on. That's why, I was a little behind with some of the assignments. And any recommendations for the demo that I'm presenting tomorrow? It's basically going to cover things like anomaly detection and some of the methods that we applied in the class. So any pointers that you recommend for me, to take before the presentation?
Um, Demos scare the crap out of me because they always break. So what
Yeah,
I
so demo is up and running. I also created an executive dashboard in
Yep,
Streamlit. So I have that covered. I'm just working through my
yep,
PPT and then going right into the dashboard.
yep. So what I would say, the method I follow when I want to present is tell people what you're going to tell them, right? So
Okay.
we'll say, this is what I'm going to tell you. Then tell them, right? Or show them, and then
Mhm.
recap at the end and tell them what you told them, right? So you set it up front. I'm going to tell you these things, and then I'm going to show it to you, and then I'm going to recap at the end all the different stuff that we covered, and ask for questions.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Thank you. I'll let you know how it goes.
I'm looking forward to it, but I'm glad you're not the only person who's been able to take stuff right from this course and incorporate it. So I'm very encouraged to hear that that's happening, and makes me feel like this is on the right track. So let
Yep.
me know. Let me know what
Yeah.
happens.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Anything else for the good of the order?
Hey Steve, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
So one of the ideas that I had was building in basically within my programming building in like oh shoot, what's the word? Um Degradation testing or fuzz testing. Have you had any experience with like creating solutions that continually test your like math, test your modeling, and then provide feedback and automatic like updates to like the coding itself? Because that's what I'm kind of wanting to do. But like not necessarily for this class, but like just as a personal project.
I have not done that. What typically, uh,
Entropy. So
yeah,
sorry.
well, no, I get you right because, but that's all part of continuously evaluating your model, and
Mhm.
I've never gotten anything far enough where it automatically tunes itself, but I think it's an interesting concept. something to look into some more, because um you know, if you have, I think the important thing is you need some kind of feedback mechanism, right? So how do you know that your model is degrading, right? You're expecting a certain accuracy percentage, what have you. That's fairly straightforward to measure, but it's like, you know how you get an email that's spam, and it's like, I'm gonna report this as spam. So I mean, that kind of supervised learning tells you if your model's drifting or not. So if you have a mechanism to get feedback that you can use to determine whether it's accuracy or not. So just for instance, if you have a detection, and how would you know it's not working? Because there's a compromise. So if you see compromises go up based on that detection, you would know that it needs to be tuned, kind of thing, or it's ineffective. um I think that's all good, but you know, to be honest, I haven't ever done that whole life cycle, but I think it's, you know, kind of the next wave of things come along.
Interesting. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, and I wish you all the best. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, uh, and you know, follow along as I do my next thing at Microsoft, and maybe I'll see you in a class down the road. So thanks so much.